Hey Coach, it's Coach Simpson here. Welcome to my YouTube station. If this is your first time at my YouTube channel, I've got a lot of materials available, and so I'll give a real quick introduction and then I'll dive into the subject for today. So if you want more in-depth material on what I'm about to talk about, you can find it at my website, fbcoachsimpson.com. One other quick announcement I want to make. This is membership month for me. I've never done a membership before on my site. I had to make sure I had enough materials that were really going to make it worth it for a coach to go ahead. If, in my opinion, if I'm asking coaches to give money for materials, it better be the best material I can put out there. And so if you are interested in that, I've got a lot of behind the scenes that really kind of go with this work we're going to be talking about today. So game plan materials, but if you decide you want to be a member to my site, there's 3 different levels you can be. All of them include discounts to my site, to my materials, but they also include a lot of behind the scenes things. And so if you're interested, you can go to my website and kind of read more about it, reach out to me, and then it's membership month, because this month, if you sign up, I'm giving out free materials for those who are kind of going to be in that first wave of guys, and we may cut off membership at the end of May. Okay, let's talk about what you're here for. So this week is game planning week. So I'm going to talk about different ways to game plan. I thought this was appropriate as we kind of get into that part of the spring where I know a lot of drills are working now, but to me, I'm looking at, okay, what did I not do great last year? What can I be better at as far as breaking down an opponent? How does that need to work? And then you can also apply a lot of these same skills to breaking down your own team. So today I'm going to talk about scouting an opponent. Okay, the next day I'll talk about game plan as far as how you build that. Once you've kind of broken down the opponent, how do you implement that now? How do you practice that? How do you put drills that are going to work with that? How do you practice these different things you want to do in the game? Finally, I'll go through the call sheet, building a call sheet. And again, I've got way more in-depth material than I'm going to stick out on YouTube over on my website if you want to get it. We're going to talk about what I call the funnel effect. And I use this in anything I'm doing with coaching. So basically, funnel, everybody knows how a funnel works. They take in large amounts of whatever they're taking out, and they strain it down to where it can fit inside of whatever you're trying to fit it inside of. Okay? In my opinion, there's 2 ways to look at this, and I'm trying to do everything I do coaching-wise on this world. So in this kind of realm of the funnel. So I'm a head coach. It's my responsibility to gather and to learn as much information as possible. And so we're going to apply that over here to our scouting principle, but you could take this same thing and apply it to whatever else you're doing really in any walk of life. But in coaching, today we're going to talk about in scouting. So I'm going to learn as much as I can about the opponent. I'm going to learn as much as I can about ourselves. How are we going to match up with the opponent? I'm going to do as much deep research as I can, run those reports that print off a gazillion and a half pages, and I'm going to go through that and try to kind of strain out the information that maybe not everybody needs to know. Head coach needs to know it all. I mean, that's the deal. That's why you get paid that whole extra $3,000 and everybody else, because you're the head coach. You have to know it all. Okay? Underneath the head coach and the coordinators, they've got to know the next most amount. If you are a head coach and a coordinator, well, your funnel just got a little bit bigger. Okay? But the coordinators need to be scouting down, breaking down that offense or that defense. Okay? They need to know as much information as they possibly can as it pertains to who they're playing. Next level down is going to be those position coaches. Okay, you're going to coach the DBs. You probably don't need to know a ton of stuff. You do need to know the general idea of what's going on up front, but you need to be spending most of your time kind of more of a narrow field focused on receivers you're going against, routes they're going to run, combinations. Okay, where the DC's got to know all of it, the head coach has to know all of it. You just have to worry about, what do I got to stop at DB? What are we concerned about at DB as a coach or whatever position you're coaching? Okay, then you go down to the next one. I put down the leaders of the team. Those are the guys that I feel can handle the most information. So let me kind of give you an example. You know, I've coached now for 20 years, and some of your leaders on the team are those guys that are super smart and they want to process and they live and breathe football, and that's how they do things. And those are really fun guys to coach. Well, those are the guys I'm talking about here. They don't always have to be the most athletic guy, but they got to be the guy that's going to communicate to everybody else. Okay, so that's what I'm considering a leader. It doesn't have to be a captain, and it could be a sophomore if you're blessed with that. But it's a guy that can retain a lot of information and can get it out to everybody else and can play fast with that information. What you don't want to do is load that kid down with way more information than he can handle, and it's going to make him slow to react. Okay, you want to play fast, so you have to figure out which kids can handle more information. That's those kids. So if you're on defense, we try usually to identify 1 or 2 guys, a guy up from the front and a guy in the back. On offense, we're usually going to pick one of our linemen is going to be that guy who's going to kind of handle most of that stuff. We're going to give him more information. And then usually it's going to be your quarterback in most offenses that's going to be able to kind of handle that. You may have a receiver that's in that world. They don't have to be your best player. They don't have to be the captain. They need to be the guy that can process the information and are vocal enough to make sure everyone else does it. That's why I call them a leader. Okay? Then you go down to your team, and that's usually where I follow what I call like an 80-20 rule. Basically, if it's happening 80% of the time, that's something that's probably worth telling the full team. Because now you're going to start building in automatics to that if you're on the defensive side of the ball, or offensively, you're probably heavily building your game plan around those numbers. You're getting that 60-40, 70-30. It's good to know that stuff, but I don't know if every kid needs to know that. But you get that 80-20, 90-10 where you broke down your opponent 90% of the time, blah, blah, blah. We want all our kids to know that, everybody on the team, okay, where our leaders may know a little more information. You can kind of do the same thing here. So if you're a position coach, you do the same thing. You break down the full team you're playing against. You pick that leader and the group and meet with him. It could be 1 or 2 kids. It could be, if you're lucky, maybe 3 or 4 kids. You give them more information. Then you go to the starters. The guys are going to be out there on the field. They need to know X amount of information. It may not be quite as much as your leaders are, because they could be a young starter, a new starter, a guy that he just plays faster when he can just play, okay? Then you go down to your next up guys. So your next up, the guy that's going to come in, or the 2 or 3 guys that are going to come in, they need to know. Then you have your kind of your scout team guys. We're not really going to get them a ton with prep unless they're running scout team. We're really working with those guys that are down here that really don't have much of a chance to play on just being better with their fundamentals. We got to get them to the point so hopefully they can start working up this ladder. We're not ignoring them, but we don't want to spend a ton of time with, I always talk to a lot of coaches where they're screaming at their 5th string guard. You're just wasting your breath right there. That kid's not ready for all this game plan stuff. Get him to get a stance and kind of work from there. So as you guys start breaking down opponents, just remember funnel effect. You need to know a ton of information if you're the head coach or the coordinator, position coach. Make sure you're giving the information to the right kid. There's nothing like giving out a 30-page game plan and you're going to see it all over the locker room floor or in the trash if you've trained your kids up where they don't put it on the floor. You want to make sure you're getting the information where it's going to be useful and it's going to help your team win. Hope you guys got a little bit from that. Again, don't forget, membership month over at my site. I actually have a full 2-hour breakdown behind the scenes of how we broke down an opponent and then showing game film of how that worked or didn't work. I'm like everybody else, I've still got a long way to go, but I think we can maybe learn something from watching, hey, here's our breakdown, here's what we told our kids, here's how we practiced that, here's what worked, here's what did not work, here's how we made adjustments at halftime. So if you really want that in-depth material, I'll be putting those out just for the members over at fbcoachsimpson.com. Appreciate your time.